Welcome to Nightmares, where horror meets your dreamscape. Here, we share spine-tingling stories that blend the thrill of horror with the calm of sleep, perfect for those who love a little fright before drifting off. If you enjoy these chilling tales, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll know exactly when a new nightmare has been uploaded. And before you fall asleep, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Let's see how far our scary tales have traveled. Sleep tight if you dare. Now our story begins. In the grimy shadows of a deserted Detroit alleyway, Larry leaned against a brick wall, his eyes scanning the empty street. He adjusted the wool cap over his greasy hair, a cigarette dangling from his lips. His skin was a patchwork of scars and tattoos, each telling a story he'd rather keep to himself. Across from him, Mike shivered, his hands buried in the pockets of a worn leather jacket. They were two guys down on their luck, looking for a break in the form of a car to call their own. The rumble of a distant engine grew louder, and Larry's heart quickened. "Here we go," he murmured, flicking his cigarette away. A sleek sedan approached, its headlights cutting through the night. It slowed to a crawl, and Mike stepped out from the shadows, his eyes fixed on the driver's side window. The car rolled to a stop, and for a moment, everything was silent but for the pounding bass of a hip-hop track thumping from somewhere nearby. The driver, a middle-aged woman with a worried look, rolled down the window a crack. "You guys need help?" she asked, her voice strained. Larry flashed a winning smile, hiding the crowbar tucked behind his back. "Yeah, ma'am," he said. "Just ran out of gas. Can you spare a lift?" Her eyes searched their faces, and for a split second, Mike thought she'd recognize the desperation in his eyes. But she nodded, unlocking the doors. They climbed in, Larry in the front and Mike in the back, the leather seats sticking to their sweaty skin. The car's interior smelled faintly of perfume and fast food. The woman's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as she pulled away from the curb. They drove in tense silence, the city's abandoned buildings flashing by like the frames of an old horror flick. Mike's thoughts raced as he studied the woman. Something wasn't right about her, a sense of unease he couldn't quite pinpoint. It was the way she kept glancing in the rear view, her eyes darting between them and the road, and the way she chewed her lower lip, like she was holding back something she wanted to scream. "You okay, ma'am?" Larry asked, trying to ease the tension with forced charm. She nodded tightly, not taking her eyes off the road. The car's GPS squawked, guiding them through the desolate streets. The closer they got to the highway, the more Larry's gut churned with excitement. The city limits meant safety, a place to ditch the car and make a clean break. Suddenly, the woman slammed on the brakes, throwing them both forward. "What the?" Mike started, but was cut off by her frantic voice. "Look," she pointed out the windshield to a group of figures staggering towards the car, arms outstretched. In the dim streetlight, Larry could see their faces were twisted into snarls, eyes glazed over with a terrifying hunger. His heart skipped a beat. "The hell's wrong with those people?" "It's the infection," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "It started a few days ago, spreading like wildfire. They bite, you turn." Her words sent a cold shiver down Larry's spine. He'd heard the rumors, but seeing it was another thing entirely. The figures grew closer, their guttural moans filling the air. Mike fumbled for the door handle, ready to bolt. "We gotta go," he yelled, but the woman was already shifting into reverse, the tires screeching as she spun the sedan around. The creatures stumbled after them, their movements jerky and unnatural. As they sped away, Larry caught a glimpse of one lunging at the car, teeth bared. The woman's eyes were glued to the rear view, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The car's tires squealed as she took a sharp turn, and Mike felt his stomach lurch. They were driving deeper into the city, not out. "Why'd you turn around?" he shouted over the din of the engine. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I have to get home, to my kids." Larry's mind raced. They had to get out of here before the infected surrounded them. He reached for the door handle, ready to make a break for it if necessary, but the woman had a plan of her own. She floored the gas pedal, the sedan rocketing down the alleyway, leaving the creatures in their dust. The GPS led them to a narrow side street, and she turned sharply, the car's tires skidding on the pavement. Larry's head smacked against the dashboard, stars exploding in his vision. When he looked up, they were in a quiet neighborhood, the houses dark and seemingly abandoned. The woman's breathing was ragged. "My house is just up here," she said, pointing to a two-story with a flickering porch light. "You can barricade yourselves in. It's as safe as anywhere." They jumped out of the car, the cold air biting at their skin. Larry could see the fear in Mike's eyes, mirroring his own. As they approached the house, the woman fumbled with her keys, the jingling sound eerily loud in the stillness. The door swung open, revealing a hallway lined with family photos and a staircase leading to darkness. As they stepped inside, Larry heard a guttural growl from upstairs. The woman's face paled. "They're already here," she murmured. "My babies." The sound of shuffling footsteps grew closer. It was time to run. But where? The infection had turned the city into a deadly maze, and every corner could hide a new horror. They dashed through the house, Larry's boots echoing on the hardwood floor. The woman's eyes were wet with tears, guiding them to the basement door. She shoved it open, revealing a steep set of stairs leading down into darkness. "Take this," she said, shoving a set of keys into Larry's hand. "There's a car in the garage. It's your best shot." Mike hesitated, but Larry grabbed his arm. "Let's go." They sprinted down the stairs, the door slamming shut above them. The basement was cold and musty, filled with the detritus of a life interrupted. Half-empty beer bottles, a dusty treadmill, a forgotten Christmas tree leaning in the corner. The growling grew louder. They had to move fast. The garage door was padlocked, but Larry fumbled with the keys until he found the right one. The lock clicked open, and they burst into the small space, illuminated by the flickering bulb above. An old station wagon sat parked, looking like it hadn't been driven in years. It was their only hope. They scrambled inside, Larry in the driver's seat, Mike in the passenger's. Larry's hands trembled as he turned the key in the ignition. The engine sputtered to life, sounding like a cough from the depths of the car's mechanical throat. The door upstairs crashed open, and the infected stumbled into the house, their cries of hunger piercing the night. They had seconds. Larry threw the car into reverse, the tires squealing as they shot out of the garage. He slammed the gear into drive and peeled out of the driveway. The woman was nowhere to be seen, lost to the chaos they'd left behind. The infected stumbled into the street, but Larry didn't slow down. He had to get them out of here. The sedan's taillights grew smaller in the rearview mirror as they sped away from the house and into the unknown. The city was a minefield now, every shadow potentially hiding a new threat. Mike scanned the streets, his eyes darting between the sidewalks and the horizon. "We need to get to the highway," he said through clenched teeth. "If we can get out of the city, we've got a chance." Larry nodded, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. They sped through red lights and abandoned intersections, the station wagon's engine roaring like a beast escaping its cage. The occasional infected stumbled into view, but they were fast, dodging them with ease. For now. As they approached the highway on-ramp, Larry saw the city's skyline in the distance, a jagged line of teeth against the night sky. The infection had claimed it all. His heart pounded as he stepped on the gas, the car lurching up the ramp. The highway stretched before them, a river of asphalt leading to what? Safety? Or just more of the same nightmare? The engine roared louder, the car's ancient suspension protesting the speed. They were racing the infection, the two of them against the world, or what was left of it. They didn't know what was ahead, only what was behind. A city lost to madness, a woman's sacrifice, and the ever-present fear of the bite that would turn them into monsters. But for now, they had a car, a plan, and each other. And in the grim world of the infected, that was more than most people could say. The highway was eerily quiet, the usual cacophony of honking horns and squealing brakes replaced by the mournful wail of the wind. Larry's eyes remained glued to the road, his instincts honed by a lifetime of dodging trouble. Mike held tight to his seatbelt, his eyes never leaving the side mirrors, watching for any sign of pursuit. They saw a few other vehicles, but they were all abandoned, doors open, engines cold. It was as if everyone had simply disappeared, leaving behind their metal cocoons to rust in the embrace of the deserted streets. The silence was broken only by the distant howls of the infected, a constant reminder of the horror they'd left behind. As they drove, the infection grew more apparent. Cars were overturned, buildings smoldered, and bodies lay scattered like forgotten toys. The once bustling city of Detroit had become a ghost town, haunted by the ravenous dead. The sight was surreal, a testament to the speed and ferocity with which the disease had ravaged the city. They drove for hours, their nerves stretched taut like guitar strings. The only sound was the hum of the engine and their own ragged breathing. The needle of the gas gauge hovered just above empty, a silent sentinel of their dwindling chances. The horizon grew lighter, hinting at the approach of a new day, but the promise of safety remained elusive. Finally, as the first light of dawn painted the sky, they spotted a gas station up ahead. It looked untouched, a beacon of civilization in a sea of chaos. Larry's foot grew heavy on the gas pedal, the car lurching forward with newfound urgency. But as they pulled in, they saw the pumps were surrounded by a group of the infected, their eyes fixed hungrily on the approaching car. The woman had said to stay in the car, to avoid contact with the infected at all costs. But they needed gas, and with every passing second, their chances of making it out of the city grew slimmer. Larry looked to Mike, who nodded grimly. They had to make a stand. They had to survive. The two men grabbed what they could from the car, a tire iron, a crowbar, and a baseball bat they found in the trunk. The infected stumbled closer, their growls growing louder. Larry's hand was steady as he opened the door, the cold metal of the bat comforting in his grip. They stepped out into the new day, ready to fight for their lives. The battle was swift and brutal. The infected were strong, driven by a hunger that seemed to override any sense of pain or fear. Larry swung the bat with all his might, cracking skulls and shattering bones. Mike wielded the crowbar with a ferocity born of desperation, each swing sending a spray of blood and gore into the air. They worked together, a well-oiled machine of survival, their movements synchronized by the rhythm of their fear. When the last of the creatures lay twitching on the ground, they paused, chests heaving. The gas pump stood before them, a silent prize in the early morning light. They moved quickly, filling the tank and checking the station's convenience store for supplies. They found canned food, bottled water, and a first aid kit, but little else of use. Time was running out, and the infection was gaining ground. They climbed back into the car, the silence of the gas station a stark contrast to the chaos they'd just endured. Larry looked over at Mike, his face a mask of grim determination. "We're gonna make it," he said, his voice hoarse. Mike nodded, his eyes never leaving the road ahead. They both knew it was a lie, but in that moment, it was the only truth they had. They hit the road again, the sun rising in a bloody crescent over the city's ruins. The highway stretched before them, a ribbon of hope in a world gone mad. They didn't know where they were going, or if anywhere was safe, but they had each other and the will to live. And as the infected grew more numerous and the gas gauge dipped closer to empty, they drove on into the heart of the apocalypse, searching for a way out.